Hello and good time of the day wherever you're at. Not sure if it's morning, evening, or night, but glad you made it. I'm John, founder of WoW Support. Doing a fantastic time today, having pre-show conversation that got pretty interesting. We'll get into some of that here in a second. Today with us, we've got our standard crew. We've got Mike
Hi, everybody.
and Jackson,
Howdy do.
and the man with our plan, Artie, our flight engineer.
Wait, he has a plan.
Why?
Wait, you don't have the plan?
There was a plan?
Sorry, it was one of those Inspector Gadget plans. Once I read it, it blew up.
That's going to be fun. Well, we're going to go with that plan then. So, a couple stories we're going to talk about just to give you guys a preview. Microsoft has released a hotfix that requires a new folder to just exist on your computer. Nobody knows why. Microsoft answer is it's there because. That's a fun one. We've got Snapdragon. Jackson was talking about how they're trying to move into the laptop realm.
And they're doing a pretty good job from what I'm looking. I'm doing a little bit of... I might be a little distracted here at the beginning when I get some numbers up so we can talk about them. But looks promising.
Get some fresh data on the screen.
Yeah.
Artie's got a topic he brought up. AI is trying to do some interesting things. There's a new term, slopsquatting. I've got some thoughts on that. And then, as promised in previous episodes, we're going to talk about what got us into IT in the first place. What are some of the projects we've done? Just kind of banter about ourselves, give ourselves a soapbox to stand on. So stick around for that. But first up, Jackson, do you know what iNet Pub is? Have you ever heard of that?
No. Is it Apple-born iNet? iPub?
It was before. Well, no, I guess it was about the same time. iNet Pub was the tool, I should say the folder used to store your entire Microsoft Internet Information Services. All your websites are contained inside there.
Wow, that just unlocked like a deep memory in my brain. Yeah, I have seen that.
Well, guess what? You're going to see that folder again.
Oh, joy.
Mike, have you seen that on any folder systems you worked on lately?
I don't remember ever seeing that folder, but not that I've ever was looking close enough to pay attention. I probably had seen it, just didn't pay attention to it.
There's a CVE 2025-21204. This was a hotfix that was kicked out from Microsoft to fix this problem, and the fix requires this folder to be on your system. Microsoft isn't saying why it needs to be there, and if you delete it, it renders the hotfix useless.
So what does inet.pub do? And .pub tells me
Not
it's...
.pub.
Oh, .pub? What is it?
iNet Pub.
Oh, inet pub. But still, it's got pub in it. That tells me public.
Yeah, it's the folder where IIS stores everything. If you start up an FTP site, if you start up a website or HTTPS site back in the day, everything is contained inside that folder.
Oh.
It's your internet published folder.
Published. Got it. I never worked on IIS before.
Count your blessings.
Linux Apache guy myself, so you know.
iNet Pub was interesting.
So why does it? So have we have any information of why it has to be there?
Microsoft says it has to be there, and here's how you restore it if you accidentally deleted it.
Does it have to like do you just create it, or do you have to create it and then assign it certain permissions and ACLs and everything too?
The permissions that are assigned are kind of behind the scenes, and you don't have access to those permissions.
System administrator doesn't have access to set those permissions. The fix is 6 simple steps. Open up computer settings. I'm going off memory on this. Go to add remove features, add internet information services, IIS, and you let it install the entire IIS suite. Now, the cool part is, and this was tested, you can remove IIS from your computer so it's not running those extra services, and it leaves the folder intact, and it will still working. It will still working. Too much blood in my caffeine stream.
So you're telling me I have to install more bloatware onto Windows to fix their bloatware?
This is on server systems.
No.
This
is a billion desktops.
So how do you install IIS on a desktop? Because
if you've got Pro, you're in luck. It's in the features. If you got Windows Home, I hope you don't delete that folder.
Yeah, wait. So just because I was also half paying attention. Forgive me for that.
This time
you don't have to. If I'm a regular Joe, I shouldn't have to worry about it. It's only if I have deleted this .NET folder that I can't get it back.
Yes. Yeah. If you didn't go and find that file and delete it and clean up your system because you find erroneous things hiding out in drives that you usually don't look at, you're fine.
Okay.
So the fix will continue to work nicely.
Oh,
but if you deleted it because you got it on yours?
Yeah, it's on mine.
Yeah. April Patch Tuesday pushed this one
and
out.
it's not a hidden folder either.
No. And if you hide it, it actually changes everything.
I'm sure it does.
Mm-hmm. I feel like if this is where I just dislike Microsoft.
It is set to read only.
Yeah, be careful on that one. Don't mess with it too much because you might break your security. Now, here's the fun
Mike's
part.
just
So
gonna go
Microsoft's
offline halfway through this episode. He'll just disappear.
Go in a freeze frame with one eye half closed. I always love when Zoom locks up and you're in this inglorious pose.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I cut you off though. What were you saying?
According to my system, it was last modified just a couple weeks ago. So it was maybe probably one of these updates that ran in the last couple weeks.
Yeah, April's Patch Tuesday pushed it out.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, welcome to iNet Pub. Don't remove it. Don't touch it. Pretend it doesn't exist. There's nothing to see here.
Clearly, there's nothing in it.
So that's that gets to my point that I dislike Microsoft. I feel like Microsoft is at that point. Maybe I should say Windows, but honestly, all of Microsoft. They're so massive, and they're used by the entire world on such a diverse set of systems that I feel like it's almost impossible. Well, it's not impossible. They will refuse to do it for valid reasons of risking, bricking billions of programs and systems that depend on all of this, the architecture that they've established with their operating system. And now I've said too many words that I forgot where I was going with this. But they're so massive that to do it right, if they wanted to fix it and they would make this a hidden folder, you've now just broken, I don't know how many other programs that rely on that folder not being hidden and changing the name. So it's like that thing where I feel like a lot of fixes that come out of Windows are just Band-Aids, and they're not real fixes. And it's just the way it's going to be until Windows 12 comes out, I guess. But then Windows 12 will come out with all the other fun problems.
So there's a company that will patch old systems like Windows 7. They actually issue patches for that. I'm not going to say it by name. I'm not going to call it out. I'm not going to direct people there because use at your own risk, because not Microsoft is patching your system. That's cool, and it's also really risky. But they'll actually go in and fix the issue instead of put Band-Aids on top of it. Really, really innovative. I hope Microsoft buys them and actually uses it instead of just bury them.
Oh, they won't. They definitely won't. There's no way. Are they a paid service or are they?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. You subscribe to it, you get good fixes. We don't use it because it's not in the Microsoft channel. You lose Microsoft support when you use it, all those things. But if you've got an old version that's unsupported by Microsoft, then it absolutely makes sense to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and especially if you're using it on hardware that can't run anything newer, especially like with our Windows 11, it can only be installed on machines built within the last couple years now. So
what a nightmare that is. I mean, how much e-waste did one company just decide to make?
Here's the other thing. That goes with that. The thing that I hate that it does is for, again, your typical user, and I've run into it so many times where people are trying to upgrade to Windows 11. They're like, "Oh, my computer can't take it." I'm like, no, it can. You just have to go into BIOS and change a couple of settings, and then you're good to go. But your average Joe would have no idea, and that computer is now trash to them because it can't take the latest update.
Exactly.
So it's
millions and millions, hundreds of millions of computers are landfill.
Mm-hmm. When they should just be turned into servers.
Or NASs, or
even just
media servers.
Or
IP device. Like, this older Dell that I've got sitting on my desk, it's an early 2000s model. In fact, I think I want to say it's a 32-bit processor. So won't run any 64-bit operating system. I had to go I went and got a Linux flavor, that the 32-bit version I could put on it. Bare minimum, a lightweight one, so it's not heavy on the graphics or anything like that. But I'm simply using it just to be a device on the network to check connectivity. Because then what I do is I plug it into the lab. The lab has maybe a new router that we're setting up or something, and it needs to test to see if that router's routing or the firewall's working or whatever else. And it's great for that. I mean, there's still a use for this computer that's 20 years old,
And that's really the big thing is the problem Microsoft has. Everybody's using them. The advantage of the marketplace that they've got is their competition is a couple guys in their garage making a Linux distro. I mean, how many different flavors of Linux are there?
A lot, but you have to. The thing I like about that environment, we're getting into the open source environment now, in the community, and the innovation that comes with that is actually pretty spectacular, because there's a lot of things I've seen in open source, either the operating systems or in individual applications and programs, where it's like, wow, this actually does it better than paid for software that's closed source.
Yeah.
There's tools that I was using in GIMP that I'm like, man, for this couple tools that GIMP has, it's better than Photoshop.
It really is. The new version is just insanely cool.
So
but
there was
that's the problem. Sorry to cut you off, Jackson. That's the problem. Is Linux is developed by a handful of people who have no monetary investment in this. There's no management structure. There's no accountability if they accidentally write in a vulnerable piece of software. So that's the risk in going to the free and open source market, is you're beholden to those people keeping up on the project and closing out tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Jackson.
I was going to say, I think PewDiePie, I saw a video from him. He just recently released a video where he, or maybe it was older, that showed up on my feed, but he was talking about why he switched to Linux. And it was interesting to hear it from him, because he basically expressed all of the things that we're talking about and we talk about all the time with Linux. And it was funny because he himself even claimed, he's like, I'm not like a computer guy. Like, I don't do this kind of stuff. And I would beg to differ. He definitely is, because I mean, he went through and he installed Linux on his machine. He's done all this customization with it. Whether or not he thinks he is, he's made it there. And I think that's the message to all of our viewers, is that you don't have to be afraid of Linux or anything for that matter. It's very informative, and it's not the word I want to use, but it's such a good experience to use it, and it's really not that much more scary than Windows or anything else that you're used to.
It is now. When I was your age, oh my goodness, I can't believe I said that. When I was your age, installing Linux was not straightforward.
No, and I think that's very different, because I think everyone's opinion of Linux is from maybe a decade ago, where they tried to install it, couldn't figure anything out, which is valid. Yeah, I mean,
you have to just rebuild the kernel. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, just compile the driver into the kernel. It's like, what?
Yeah. But
or just install Windows.
Yeah, I've been using Linux since 2008 or 9. It was probably when what happened was I inherited from my mother-in-law. She ran her own business out of her house. She was doing dictation work for doctors, medical groups, such and so forth. Anyway, one of her computers had aged out. She got a new one, faster, more memory, more hard drive, all the bells and whistles and everything. So now there's this older computer that's like, I don't need it. And I'm like, I'll take it and I'll play around with it. And I'm like, what am I gonna do with it? I'm like, I've heard so much about Linux. I want to actually try it. So that's when I start getting into learning about Linux and playing around with it. But yeah, I remember like installing it, and it mostly worked, but then it's like, oh, for the sound on this thing, you need a driver. You got to compile the driver because nobody's compiled it. Like, it's not in the repository. And yeah, it gets really, really technical and complicated, but people have done such a tremendous job to try to bring as much accessibility to it as possible, to make it so that the average user can just stick it on a USB thumb drive, pop it in, boot from it, install it, and right off the bat you have your desktop, and you have some applications. You have either OpenOffice, LibreOffice, or something like that. You can be productive. You've got email, you've got a web browser, and it's all right there that you can just start using it.
So,
which is really awesome, because I think
I'm going to break in here. Earlier this week, I did an install of Debian 12. I set up a virtual machine and got the most recent stable release of Debian, and I was expecting, get in there and have a terminal in front of you and start like typing commands. Got a GUI interface. Was not expecting that. And Firefox, LibreOffice, all these like very simple, useful programs that were installed with it. So it's come a long way from having to compile everything yourself.
That's the beauty of the new market. The problem is it's still supported by a couple people. It could be 30 or 40 people.
Relatively speaking, it's few.
Yeah, but
that are
that's
unpaid.
where I like it. Unpaid volunteers. They're passionate. It's a higher quality product when you got that, no doubt. But this is where, we even talked about that in podcast. Red Hat went closed source and paid, right? They did that. Oh gosh, what was it, about 8 months ago or something like that?
Yeah, within the last year, a couple years ago. Yeah, I remember reading all the news about it, because it's Red Hat, and then it was like, what was that going to mean for Fedora and a couple of the other distros that have been based or kind of calibrated towards that environment? Yeah,
their fork is splined off. They're not going to receive the Red Hat updates. But I'll kind of take the approach. I think it's a good idea to have a corporation managing that flavor of Linux, because if there is an issue, they're on the hook to fix that issue.
Yeah, I wonder though, and I don't keep up too much with the news in general, but I would like to know what if you just take Linux and Windows and compare, how often does Windows break itself, and how often does Linux, have an issue, and what's their
What time
average
is it?
response? I'd love to know, because I feel like I hear a lot less, and it may just be because Linux user base is significantly smaller than Windows, and so it's not as big of a deal per se. So I'd be curious to know, what is Linux's response time for these smaller managed distros, and then you have Windows. And so, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting thought. I do want to pivot to our other stories here, because I think we could talk about this the entire podcast and beyond. As a matter of fact, we'll probably talk about it after the podcast wraps up tonight. But anyway, speaking of challenging the norm and going after David and Goliath kind of mentality, Jackson, you brought up Qualcomm.
Yes, Qualcomm is making strides to kind of make a name for themselves in the mouths of the standard your layman.
And they couldn't do it without Linux.
Qualcomm's been around for a while, haven't they?
Yeah.
Oh, they have. Mm-hmm. So Qualcomm's processor line, I think in 2015 they coined it as Snapdragon, and it's been used in many a mobile device. Notably, one of the more, I guess, power hungry or processor hungry would be some virtual reality devices. I think the Oculus. I don't know what they're using now, but they may still be on the Snapdragon platform. We're using it as their kind of main engine.
Samsung was using them for a long time. I think they might still be using them.
Yeah, there are several mobile phones that are using Snapdragon.
So billions of devices.
Mm-hmm. And they've kind of just kept to their own until recently, where they are now entering the laptop scene. Notably, I mean, it looks like the company, I was just doing some searching here, trying to find some example laptops. Notably, Dell is pushing it pretty strongly. They're advertising it more than any other company is. In fact, I'd say even at all. I tried to do a search for Snapdragon-powered laptops, and Dell was the only one that came up until I scrolled to the bottom of Google, finally found HP, and then it looks like from the Google stores, you can see, okay, Acer does have one, even Surface has one, and so they've entered the field. And I was looking at some comparisons using Passmark. I use them all the time for comparing CPUs, and the scores were not to be scoffed at.
They're good processors.
Mm-hmm. The standard processor that was in most of the Dell models, in fact, I think the only ones that I saw that were Dell was using, which Snapdragon, please come up with a better naming system. The X Elite X1E-80-100. I hate that. That was a
like
processor
Micro.
Say what?
That's like Super Micro naming a motherboard.
Super Micro.
The EL-E900-1415-NLU. Oh gosh,
that's awful. It's awful.
Oh, you got the NLU. I got the NLX.
Oh man, yeah. I'll look for that. Those are out of stock.
So yeah. So are we talking like full laptops here? Or are we talking more like netbook, Chromebook-ish kind of machines?
No, these are full-blown laptops.
Wow.
And they're not to be scoffed at. The score of that processor that I just named from Passmark is 23,202. Now, a desktop processor, one, for instance, I have a machine right next to me that has a Ryzen 7 5700X. the Passmark gave it a score of 26,629, and as far as Passmark scores go, it's not that different.
I mean, that's in arm's length.
Yeah, and this machine
Did you catch
paired
that?
with
Arm's length. Sorry.
I see what you did there.
that was good. That was a good one. And
Dad
excuse me, the Ryzen 7 5700X is a great processor. It's a great mid range, even mid to high, I'd say. Processor. That one, the Ryzen 7 has 8 cores, 16 threads. Now, one thing I did notice, I'm not seeing on any of the Snapdragon that they have multi-threading. I am only seeing 12 cores, 12 threads, 12 cores, 12 threads. So I think once they kind of implement that, they may just blow a lot of things out of the water, which would be interesting to see. And I wouldn't even say I'm the best person to be talking about this. It's been a long time since I've been, that involved in the computer part realm, because it is certainly one you can get lost in, and there's YouTube channels devoted to talking about all of this. But and now to compare it to an Intel system, this is another Intel desktop processor, the i5 14400F. That processor got a score of 25,000. So again, it is not that far off. And this is in a laptop too. So it's promising. It's exciting to see what might come from it.
Do they have
I'm always
hopes for getting into the desktop or server market or anything like that, or where are they going to go with this?
So looking online, I think that's where they're headed. They want to get there, and it seemed like they announced / partnered with Lenovo to make some enterprise class machines that are using a desktop form factor CPU. However, you can't buy one just off the shelf, which
Oh.
makes sense, because when you take into consideration, if you release that to the public, right, as a standalone processor, you've got to have a lot of compatibility put in mind, because with AM4 and Intel's chipsets, I mean, those have to be able to be used by all of these different motherboard manufacturers, and it's got to be compatible. So it makes sense that they're starting out with laptops, and they're partnering with Lenovo to put it into their enterprise desktops, because they have a lot more control, and they can say, this is the motherboard that goes with this CPU and nothing else. So that makes sense to me, and I think it won't take very long for them to start for us to start seeing some motherboards that are compatible with Snapdragon Snapdragon CPUs.
It's going to be
Gonna be
interesting
awesome.
to see what happens when it goes up against Apple and their processors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
those
mean, you're looking at that tight control of that development and planning, and proprietary. It's this motherboard, this chipset, this graphics unit, this whatever that Apple's done for years and years and years. So
and done
think
well. I mean, a
the-
chip designed by committee.
Yeah.
Can't believe they made it work.
Well, I think what makes Apple in particular very successful with this model is that they make the hardware and they make the software. So not only are they locking down board and CPU, but they're also locking down operating system. So, I mean, when you pair all of that together, you can do some pretty amazing things. And so I don't know if Snapdragon is going to go that route. I don't think they will, because, I mean, you don't really see any Snapdragon devices or Snapdragon OS. But I think, to your point, Mike, I think, yeah, I mean, they're doing their best to do that with what they've got and the market that they're entering. So I think they've got a very good chance.
Cool. Neat stuff.
Yeah.
Nice to see that there's going to be more than just the same, two choices or three choices, whatever it is. I kind of like the idea of having competition of diversity, so that you can pick and choose exactly what's going to work for
Mhm.
your given situation, you know?
We got both kind of processors, country and Western.
Yeah, I'm.
Speak-
I think it's exciting of that at least to have more competition. I'm hoping. Well, I don't know if I really hope this, but Intel's kind of been on the decline for a while, and so it'd be interesting to see if the market will support 3 different vendors, or if maybe Snapdragon,
And
if they are that good, they might take place of Intel, and Intel might take a background. I don't know.
Yeah, people were saying that back when Cyrix was a processor.
I was just thinking Cyrix too. When he said
Never,
that, I was like thinking, man, remember Cyrix?
never even heard of it.
You never even heard of
Exactly.
it? You were too
Mm-mm.
young back in the day.
So it was AMD, Cyrix, and Intel, and all of them were fighting for position.
Yeah.
Cyrix was a chip that was compatible with the Intel socket.
Oh, interesting.
It would run slower and cooler and give you the same performance. And so they named it the equivalent of the performance, which I think was just a huge mistake. So you buy like a 200 megahertz processor, it was running at 120. I think 133, one of those. Super cool. Intel was put on their heels and they responded. Cyrix isn't a company. Well, they might still be a company somewhere, but they're not making processors for the mainstream PCs.
Yeah, I guess
But,
we'll have to see. We'll have to see if they take off, what kind of maybe issues that people have or don't have.
It'd be interesting to see what AI comes up with next. Will they make a processor?
I'll tell you what, AI is not good at making PCBs. I've tried doing that. There's all of these PCB. What's the word I'm looking for? Like KiCad or Altium. Although I don't know if either of them offer, the AI option. I think Altium might have some sort of version of it. It's like, oh, we'll wire all your traces for you and set up your PCB. It does a terrible job. It's awful. So I don't think we're close. It'd be nice though, because sometimes it's like banging your head against a wall trying to figure it all out. But not
Well,
yet.
there's companies out there kind of holding position. Artie, I'm going to switch it over to your story.
Alrighty. So we're talking about AI a little bit. There is a trend that has appeared, and essentially what it is you've got the modern AI script kiddies. They are, getting all of their code from an AI of their choice, and it's telling them, oh, you've got to go here. You've got to install this dependency. Problem is that each one of these dependencies, you need to check out and make sure it actually exists, because the AI has been hallucinating. And it
You're dependent on a
hallucinates.
Cyrix processor.
It hallucinates names that can be similar to actual projects that are out there. So some people don't like make the connection that, oh, that's not the right name for this one. Now, what some people have been doing is they've been finding out these hallucinations and then squatting on like the GitHub repository for this new dependency. And it's the name for it is slopsquatting, and it's a portmanteau of AI slop and cyber squatting.
I'll say it again. I said it in the pre-show. I still think that sounds like a horrible TikTok challenge.
Involving pigs or something like that, right?
Yeah, posting pigs in like URLs that you're squatting on the name.
That's a really ingenious, like, I'm thinking about this is right along the same lines as AI getting a lot of lawyers into trouble when they use AI to write their briefs, and it cites case law like, hey, yeah, we're citing, monitor v chair, and like, it's like that's not a case. That doesn't exist. And here it is citing dependencies. So then, let me get this right. So AI comes up with a list of dependencies, and then people figure out, well, I'm just going to go to that repository. It obviously doesn't exist, so then they create it. And what do they do then? Are they delivering malicious content that way, or what are they doing with it?
That is a potential. It all depends on who decides to get a hold of the repository name first. You'll have a lot of bad actors that would want to get that just so they can, copy the actual repository that it's supposed to be and then insert their own code to make it either malicious or comical. There are some people out there that will just, insert their own stuff into it. Like everything that comes to mind is inappropriate, so I'm not going to say any of them.
Or even just a message that tells the script kiddie, you should check your resources first before you blindly use AI to create your scripts.
Yeah, that's more of a wider gray hat approach.
Yeah.
I saw somebody say, just use AI to make your website. It happens in minutes. I'm thinking to myself, would you really trust your e-commerce to ChatGPT?
Just use AI to build your house for you. It'll be ready in minutes.
Mike, you mentioned lawyers using it to cite case history. Did you know they're beyond their patience now in the courts?
I've heard
anybody caught doing that gets sanctioned like instantly.
I've heard it. It's been happening frequently, and they're trying to crack down on it. Yeah.
Yeah, don't be the lawyer that pulls that out of the briefcase. You get really yelled at.
I mean, and it's so common. I literally had an argument yesterday with ChatGPT about this exact thing. I was like, I was having chat help me decipher a library, and I was like, okay, how's the structure of this go? How do I need to access what functions and whatnot? And for that, it's great. It is so good at reading somebody's, website with the worst formatted instructions on the planet and give you a summary, But if you try and use it to write it, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, and use this library here and this library here. I'm like, yeah, those don't exist. Like maybe they existed 10 years ago or something. Like I don't know where you're getting it, but it does not exist. And it's like
ChatGPT is confidently wrong.
Oh, and it would it was so funny. And sometimes I was asking it for some instructions. Okay, well, how do I change like the brightness of this matrix I have? I was working with an RGB panel and all this. And it goes, oh yeah, just implement this function. I said, okay, I did that, it didn't work. And it goes, oh, well, of course it didn't work. You're like, here's why it didn't work. And I was like, why'd you tell me to do that then? It goes, actually, you need to do it here. I said, yeah, that doesn't work either. It goes, oh, well, you have to use this library. I'm like, that library doesn't exist. And it's so like sassy in the way it responds. I just it makes you angry. You're like, chat, you're so stupid. It's like, now I have to go read the actual documentation. Gosh.
My solution for any of that, when it starts like giving you answers like that, is just enter in the command, give me short answers.
Yeah, you have to ask it
be straight to the point, because the people that designed it want it to sound friendly and want it to sound human, and I don't want it to sound human when I'm using it, because it's just adding like 80% fluff to the information that I want.
Yeah, don't patronize me.
Turn off
the AI to I'm using the AI to distill what is already there.
Mm-hmm.
Give me short bullet points of this. I'd be happy to do that. As a matter of fact, making bullet points is one of the most important things I can do. Here's the story about this other one, and then here's the 5 that you wanted. If you'd like anything else.
Oh man, if I could punch ChatGPT, I would. I'd punch it so hard. I'd be like, shut up.
Did you see?
Obviously, that's the issue.
Did you see Sam Altman just? He said people are saying thank you and please, and it's literally wasting millions of dollars. I think they need to listen to their own advice.
So I find lately I have found that chat is useful in I've been putting in snippets of code that maybe I don't understand, and I ask for an analysis. Help me understand either why it's broken or how it works or how it how it thinks it's supposed to work, like what it thinks it's supposed to do. So for an example, I have an old book of basic programs that these programs were dating back to 1976, 77, 78. We're almost 50 years old, some of these programs. Written to be compatible, published in this book, and the book says these are compatible with Microsoft Basic as of 1978 when the book was published. Okay. Microsoft Basic, right? So, which is a very, forgive the pun, but basic and easy to understand language if you've ever programmed in Basic for any amount of time. And I was reading through one of these programs. I'm working with my 11-year-old son typing this in, and we got to a section at the very start where it used some commands that I actually was not familiar with as far as Basic goes. And I'm like, I have no idea what this means. So we plugged in the lines of code into ChatGPT. I'm like, help me understand. This is written in 1978 Microsoft Basic. Help me understand what's going on here. And it told me what those commands were doing. It was to initialize a matrix variable to a specific value, which since 1978 Microsoft Basic made improvements to where when you create that, the initialization automatically happens anyway. So now it's an unneeded command. The command fell out of the basic syntax probably a year or two after that program was published and everything. It's really good for that. Yes, thank you. It explained it. I understood it. But for coming up with, which I think people really want it to be the creative tool to create things that's reliable and makes sense, it's not there yet. It still feels like you're not really being creative. You're just pulling from different spaces and trying to assemble it together to make it make sense. But when a human looks at it, goes, this isn't going to work. And like you said, that dependency doesn't exist, or this is not how this actually works.
We've taught a toddler how to use the dictionary and phonetics.
Right. And so next thing you know, it's all your bases belong to us. It's like,
let's just hope it doesn't learn to set us up the bomb.
Right.
Oh.
So yeah, I think we always come to the same conclusion every time this comes up. Chat cannot create it. It just can't, or any AI for that matter. But yeah, I agree with Mike. It's very good at interpreting, and it's very good at taking small chunks of things and telling you what's going on. Now, if you have like a program that's split across multiple files, chat's not going to be able to help you out. I mean, you might be able to give it all the files, but even then, it's sometimes it'll just start making up what functions do, and
there's something that I ran into today. I was trying to figure out a problem, and it asked for the website, or the URL of the website that I was trying to deal with, and it did not give me the actual title of the website. It used a different title that it came up with, and just like that's not right. So I corrected it and said, "Oh yes, that wasn't the right one. I was using extrapolated data to give you this." And it's like, that's not what I asked you to do.
Oh, did I tell you about the picture I generated? May have even been in this podcast where I had it generate 4 lights. So I took ChatGPT's Dolly, like version 3. And I said, I want to see 4 lights. And, just like Star Trek, just like that episode, it came up with 5. And then it came up with 6. And it's like, okay, what did you just make? I want you to give me a picture and tell me what the picture contains.
Tell me how
It
many
drew
lights are
7
in the
lights.
picture you just made. There's 4.
It's 4. 100%. It was just 4. Yeah,
You
we're at
ask
a point where AI is not smart.
Can I call you Captain Picard now?
Yeah, it's frustrating, but at the same time, I did use it earlier today even to identify a JST connector because I didn't know what it was. I was like, "Hey, what is this?" And I was like, "There's no way it's gonna come with an answer." I came with an answer. I looked it up. I was like, "Okay." I was like, "That's useful." How often will it get that right? Probably not very often. I probably got lucky, but
I almost wonder if, like, Chat GPT is great for some of the things like I just described, but anymore now, because Google's built it into the search results now, that I search on something just on Google, I want to get a list of websites that's going to help me with my problem. And now at the top, there is an AI generated summary based on the search results. And I'm actually finding that is pretty helpful because it's taking something that it actually found on the internet, digesting it, and then just providing me a summary. I still have to verify it though. It's like, how do I, in Microsoft Windows on the command line, do this? And then it explains it. It's like, okay, is that really how I do that? Or am I going to type in this command and it's going to go bad command or file name? I mean,
yeah. No, I'm actually fairly impressed with Google because I remember like even just a few months ago when they first started doing that, it was awful. It was so useless. But now I'm starting to for small specific queries like, hey, what is this? I get that quick answer, like, and I'm like, I'm done. I don't have to sift through 3 websites to find, the one piece of information I wanted. So that is good, but you can't rely on it. You do have to verify that stuff.
Yep.
It's like
you can't even trust
pizza toppings. You always want to put, like 2 cups of glue on your pizza.
Help the cheese stick.
And actually, the answers are accurate, but it's based on versions of the software from 15 years ago. It's like, you type in this command. Well, yeah, that was the command I type in for version 2, but I'm on version 11 now. So help me out here. Like,
it's such a challenge because the training model is just so, and here's where I'm at is every output becomes an input. It takes our feedback and puts it back into the system. So if it's inaccurate and we say, "Thank you, sir, may I have another?"
Positive reinforcement.
Positive reinforcement towards garbage data. Or if you
Here's
just
your
close
treat.
it and don't close the loop. I'm very curious where this is going to go. I don't see AI replacing jobs anytime soon, but I could see it augmenting people's jobs that are smart. Use it to speed up your day so you can do 20 hours work in 8.
Let us get to the point of like the Jetsons where you go into work, you press a button 6 times, you go home. That's where I want AI to get us to.
No, because your wife grabs your entire wallet of cash and goes to the store.
I mean,
I almost got Mike.
That works.
Yeah.
Had a mouthful of soda. I almost got him.
Are you going to invest in some kind of a screen protector so I can do spit takes at the monitor?
If you accidentally, okay, so had you had done that, I would have bought a new monitor for you. But that's not future warranty.
I like this monitor though. I don't. And my keyboard is my keyboard. I'm not gonna mess that up either. So
yeah, that's a nice keyboard.
It's a nice keyboard.
The true measure of someone in IT is the keyboard that they use. Don't
keyboard,
be fooled.
mouse, other peripherals. Yeah.
Well, let's pivot to that. I mean, we promised our listeners what projects we've done. Talk about your keyboard, Mike.
So
How
my
did you come to now?
keyboard,
Can we see it?
my keyboard is, I don't know how well, because I've got like
Oh, whoa, that looks
it's
fun.
an 8-bit do. They make these really nice keyboards. Also have the number pad that goes with it. I'm sorry that the
Oh, that's
auto
cool.
blur is like kind of killing it. But the functions as both a calculator and a keyboard number pad, so that you can hit like calculator and you can type numbers and calculate on it and everything.
I'll bet the
It's
processor inside that keyboard is more powerful than the original Commodore.
I don't know. I don't know what they build it with. That'd be interesting to know. But yeah, so it's styled after the Commodore 64, what they called the bread bin computer. Commodore 64 was the first computer that my family when I was growing up, my family got our first computer. It was a Commodore 64. We got it in the fall of 1982, right after they had been released. It was actually my mom's computer. My dad got it for my mom because my mother was taking continuing she had graduated from college with a degree in elementary education. I don't remember if it was specifically like early elementary or just elementary in general. I don't remember, but it was elementary education. And she had taken some additional classes, was taking classes at the time on using computers in the classroom, because this was right as Apple IIs and Commodores and schools were starting to get computers into classrooms and use them as an educational tool. So she wanted to know, how do I make use of this if I end up in a classroom with a computer? What do I do with it? And so my dad got her this Commodore 64, brought it home, and it hooked up to the TV set, so we didn't have to get a monitor. He got a disk drive so we could save programs and have storage. And I remember waking up that first day and walking in, and my parents were already like typing in programs and seeing what it could do. And I was hooked. I was fascinated. And I'm only six years old at the time. And pretty soon I was able to read the user manual and the different books that my mom got well enough that I could start typing in some of the programs, learning how BASIC worked, and then started creating my own BASIC programs and exploring the computer that way, which is way more than my mom had ever expected. Like, I think it was a complete surprise to her. Like, he's only 6 and he's already figured this thing out. Like, he knows how to make it do all these different things. And I stuck with that. I decided that I loved computer programming. I kept hacking away at it and making little different programs and playing games too, because the Commodore 64 was one of the best selling computers of all time. And tons of great games were made for it. So I played all the games I could get my hands on and just had a lot of fun with it. And then that transitioned to when I got to high school, I started taking computer programming courses, learned Pascal because that's what the advanced placement tests were based on, was the Pascal language at that point in time. And did that all through high school and even a little bit into college, but took a break and went in a sidetrack into graphic design. Still working with computers. I love working with computers, but to do graphics. And I think that's one of the things that the Commodore really helped me learn and do, is because it was capable of graphics, it was capable of sound, it was capable of doing all these great things that was kind of ahead of its time a little bit, that I was a very visual person. And so doing graphics just made sense at that point in time. And then recently, coming back to school, doing online school, I decided to jump back more into the programming, and I wanted to learn about networking. I wanted to learn about, how do computers talk to each other, over a network, and how do we administer these much more complex systems that we have now, that are servers and powerful desktops and workstations and everything, that, compared to my little Commodore 64, just blows it out of the water. But at the time, to learn, and I still learn. I still very much have a hobby of learning about this neat little computer that was based on a MOS technology 6502. The Commodore's version was the 6510 processor, and learning assembly language. Some of the things that, like, Jackson's been able to learn in his classes, but on a much simpler 8-bit
I
single
hate
thread,
assembly.
processor. Just I want to take it one step at a time. If I ever get into advanced computer processors, I don't know, that might be in another lifetime. I'm gonna need like an eternity to learn that stuff. I'm just happy to learn just this little piece of heaven that I have right now. It's been so much fun and so fascinating. But that's how I got into IT. And just, my mom always knew that once she saw me on that computer, she knew, yeah, he's going to be working with computers in his life somehow, some way. Don't know. And even when I did the graphic design, it was still working with computers. And so she was, even though I had changed, she was a little bit disappointed, like, oh, you're not going to be a computer programmer anymore. Like, she's kind of disappointed, but she's like, but you're still working with computers. And I always knew you'd be just someone who works with computers in his life.
That's awesome. Yeah, assembler is one of my loves and hates. Like I got into it. I saw how awesome it was, and then I realized how tedious it could be.
There's no love. Be real. There's
No, I
no
loved it.
love.
I made in x86. I wrote a program that was 8 bytes, and it would read the key that you press on the keyboard and kick that back to DOS as an error level. 8 bytes. Shortest program that was useful that I ever wrote.
Oh man, no, I was tortured in that class that I took. That was assembly. They had us sent us on. They called it the bomb and the attack, and we had to either, for the attack part, it was us kind of using a lot of buffer overflows and some of the basic exploits that you that are used all the time to exploit programs. But the bomb one was awful. It was just, you would get to a certain point and then boom, it blows up in your face and you have to restart. And so it's like every line you're hitting like the next command, and you have to figure out what the heck is it going to do, and then you have to find the flag, and oh man, it was a mess. So I mean, I was like traumatized from that, but I could see how someone might enjoy assembly.
Did you enjoy assembly, Mike?
I haven't. It's only been like I said, in the recent years that I've really gotten into assembly. I tried learning it as a kid, and for whatever reason, like, I just don't think I don't think I had the right, because we didn't have the internet back then. So I didn't have the right materials to learn from. I had some, but it was such a high level view that it really didn't explain like what was going on. It's just like, oh, here's this. For example, it can do assembly. Like, you type in this and it compiles to this and it produces this result. And it never really explained, like, piece by piece, like, okay, it's going to load something into this register, and then it's going to add 2 to it, and then it's going to store it in this memory location. That's going to, it never really explained that. And so I had a hard time learning it just for the lack of educational materials. But now that I'm getting into it, I do understand it better because of the materials I have, and it still frustrates me just a little bit, because I saw a video where a YouTuber had taken a Commodore 128 and made it play a digitized sound sample. Just in BASIC, he used a BASIC program to do it. And it's by manipulating the sound chip in such a way that it can produce the waveform from the sound sample, right? So I saw him do it on a Commodore 128, because the Commodore 128 had a more advanced BASIC that you had easier control over the hardware with basic commands. The Commodore 64 lacks a basic command set to control the video chip and the sound chip. And so it's a lot of direct manipulation of the registers for that hardware. So I thought, well, I think I can do the same thing on a Commodore 64, but I can't do it in BASIC because it would be too slow to have to manipulate those registers in BASIC. So I set out to write an assembly program. So it's part BASIC, part assembly, and the player part is the part that's in assembly. And so I thought this would be a good thing for me to learn assembly because I'm doing a very basic, very defined task. Loop through this memory, get the values, and then play it on the sound chip. And I got it to work.
Nice.
And I even was able to use Audacity, record my voice, downsample it to the audio format that it needed to be, get it into an emulated Commodore 64, run my program, and I'm hearing a Commodore 64 play my voice back, which if I had done that as a kid, I think I would have been totally blown away. Like, wow, I got this to work, and everything.
Probably get a scholarship to Ivy League school at that level.
Yeah, back then I probably would have. MIT, here I come. Or something. Yeah.
Well, friends, we are nearing the end of the time.
Time flies when you're having fun. Mike, that sounds like a fantastic adventure getting into computers.
It's
Thanks for
been
sharing.
fun. I've enjoyed it, and it's great industry, and you get to meet a lot of people, and technology's doing a lot of neat things. It's just great to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll put a bow on it right now and say, great conversation, guys. It's been a fantastic time hanging out with you guys. To all our viewers, please like and subscribe if you found this interesting. We talked about a fewer spicy things than we have in the previous ones. I invite you to go check those out. I'm not going to call them out because I think the content there got it like derailed from the algorithm. So you got to go looking for it. But until next time, I'm John.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jackson.
I'm Marty.
Oh,
And we'll
you
see you
stumped
next
him.
time.
No, I'm just
You
tired.
didn't. Oh, you could have said that instead of your name. It's your signature. Sign up with not your name.
That should tell you how tired I am.
Tune in next time when you hear Artie say,
Absolutely nothing.
have a good night, everybody.